Hera, the queen of the gods, is one of the most powerful and respected deities in Greek mythology. Known for her incomparable beauty, cunning intelligence, and fierce determination, Hera is considered the protector of marriage and family, and the goddess of fertility, the sky, stars, and vegetation. Hera was the daughter of Cronus and Rhea and had 5 siblings: Hestia, Demeter, Hades, Poseidon, and Zeus. The myth tells that Cronus, Hera's father, was a powerful and ambitious god who feared losing his throne, as he had received a prophecy that one of his children would dethrone him. To prevent the prophecy from being fulfilled, the Titan decided to swallow his children at the moment of their birth. Hera was one of the victims of this practice, and was swallowed by her father shortly after birth. The goddess spent some time in her father's stomach before she was freed along with her siblings by Zeus, the youngest son of Cronus, who managed to dethrone his father and free his siblings. Once Olympus was recovered, the gods began to rule according to their designs, and Hera became one of the most beautiful goddesses of the whole kingdom. Her cunning, beauty, great intelligence, and wisdom surprised all the gods. In time, the beauty of the goddess captivated Zeus, while her wisdom impressed him deeply. According to the myth, Zeus fell madly in love with Hera and wished to betroth her, but she was initially reluctant to his advances. Since she was a highly respected and desired goddess, Zeus knew he had to be very cunning to win her heart. The god, eager to possess her, decided to transform himself into a bird to approach his sister and gain her trust. Zeus transformed himself into a beautiful cuckoo and began to sing near the place where the beautiful maiden used to bathe in the river. The Olympian, captivated by his song, approached the bird and began to caress it. The god took the opportunity, and immediately transformed back into his divine form, took her in his arms, and kissed her passionately, but the beautiful woman rejected him instantly, and was not at all interested in him. Although the gesture of transforming into a bird filled her with joy, the goddess did not want to get involved with the god of lightning. Although the beautiful maiden resisted, Zeus continued to woo her and send her gifts, promising her eternal love. The woman of Olympus finally gave in to his great persistence and, captivated by her brother's love, accepted his proposal, and they were married in a magnificent ceremony on Olympus. The wedding of Hera and Zeus was the grandest event the world had ever seen. Aphrodite prepared the goddess for her big day, adorning her with jewels and radiant dresses. Hermes, the messenger of the gods, carried the invitations to every corner of the known world. When the wedding day arrived, the gods and goddesses arrived at Olympus dressed in their most splendid attire. The beautiful goddess arrived at the altar accompanied by her maidens, and Zeus was anxiously awaiting her. When they joined hands, the heavens opened and the divinities of Olympus celebrated with great thunder and lightning. Thus, Hera became the queen of Olympus and Zeus the supreme god of heaven and earth. And as time went by, as a result of their great love, the kings of Olympus had several very powerful children, among them Ares, god of war, Hebe, goddess of youth, and Eileithyia, goddess of childbirth. However, time later, there was an event that upset the queen of Olympus too much, because she felt that her husband had displaced her. The queen of the gods was very angry because Zeus had begotten Athena without her help, so in revenge, she wanted to do the same and beget a child alone. So, when she succeeded, for several months, she was anxiously awaiting her future son Hephaestus, because she said he would be very powerful, slender, and extremely beautiful. But when the moment of delivery arrived, the god was born with physical deformities and was so ugly that when the goddess held him in her arms she screamed in horror, and never wanted to see him again, as she felt that the child had shamed her because of his terrible appearance. The goddess, in her despair and shame, decided to get rid of the child by throwing him from Olympus. Little Hephaestus fell from the top into the sea, hitting terribly with the waters, and suffering serious permanent injuries. His leg was twisted and his face was irregular. Despite this, the god survived thanks to the intervention of the goddess Thetis, who found him, rescued him, cared for him, and took him to a cave on the island of Lemnos. There, Hephaestus began to work on his blacksmithing and forging skills. In time, he became an expert at creating powerful and beautiful objects, and his skill became famous throughout the world. After years of working at his craft of smithing and becoming an expert forging god, Hephaestus decided to take revenge on his mother for the rejection he had suffered at birth. And to carry out his plan, the spiteful god created a golden chair finely decorated with beautiful precious stones and sent it as a gift to Hera. His mother, thrilled with the ostentatious gift, accepted it with such glee that she wanted to sit on it at once. When the goddess sat in the chair, she realized that she was trapped in it and could not free herself. The chair was designed with such perfection and skill that it was impossible to escape from it. When Hera found herself trapped on the golden throne created by her son Hephaestus, she angrily cried out for help, and the other gods desperately came to her aid. Zeus, as leader of Olympus, ordered all the gods to work together to free Hera from the deception. They all tried to free her, but were unsuccessful, as the chair had been designed with hidden abilities known only to its creator. Finally, Hephaestus appeared before the other gods and demanded that they accept him back into Olympus. The man of the forges resented the rejection and shame he had suffered at birth and wanted to make sure that they accepted him as he was, despite his terrible appearance, and above all that he be respected as a great god like his brothers. Zeus accepted Hephaestus' conditions and ordered that the goddess be released from the ill-fated throne. Hera, realizing her son's skill and cunning, accepted the condition and apologized to him for his refusal. Hephaestus was welcomed back to Olympus as a god respected and admired for his skills and achievements, becoming one of the most powerful and important gods of the pantheon. On the other hand, the story goes that, at a wedding banquet on Olympus, Eris, the goddess of discord, threw a golden apple with the inscription, "For the most beautiful," into the middle of the room as revenge for not being invited, which caused a great dispute among the goddesses. Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite claimed the apple for themselves and began to argue over who was the most beautiful goddess on Olympus. The uproar was so great that Zeus had to intervene to settle the dispute. The king decided that the Trojan prince Paris, known for his beauty and youth, would be in charge of choosing which of the goddesses was the most beautiful. The queen of Olympus knew she had to make sure that Paris, who was assigned the role of judge, chose her beauty over that of the other two goddesses. So, the cunning goddess decided to offer a reward to the prince that he could not resist. She told him that if he chose her, he would rule with success and wealth forever. However, Athena also offered him a great reward with the desire to be chosen. She promised him that he would be a brave and skilled warrior, above any other man and god, if he decreed that she was the most beautiful of the goddesses. Aphrodite, the goddess of love, instead, made him an irresistible offer. She offered him the love of the most beautiful woman in the world, Helen, the wife of King Menelaus of Sparta. Paris, delighted with the proposal of the goddess of love, finally chose her as the winner, receiving the title of the most beautiful woman in the world. For fulfilling his part, the prince received Helen as his reward, and when he had the opportunity, he claimed his prize and kidnapped the beautiful maiden. This disastrous deed triggered the terrible Trojan War, which lasted 10 years. Hera was undoubtedly very displeased by Paris' decision, and from that moment she felt a great hatred towards the Trojans, and of course, she proposed to destroy them. When the war was going on, the gods intervened according to her wishes, and Zeus, as defender of the Trojans, sought to help them at all times during the battle. Hera knew that, if the Trojans received the support of the king of Olympus, victory in the war would be assured for them. For this reason, she decided to take drastic measures to ensure that Zeus would not interfere in the battle in favor of the enemies. The divine maiden prepared for her plan and appeared before the king in all her splendor, using all her beauty and skill to seduce him. Hera used her influence on Olympus to convince the god to take a break and give in to her desires. Zeus, seduced by the beauty of his wife, acceded to the request, eager to be with her. Thus, after consummating his desire, he fell fast asleep while the Greeks advanced in battle. The wife of the king of Olympus had achieved her goal, at least temporarily, as the absence of Zeus allowed the Greeks to gain an advantage in the battle. Although the Olympian finally woke up and returned to the fray, his temporary absence had been enough to turn the tide of the war. However, the goddess' intervention was not enough to win the fight, so, to achieve her goal, Hera sent her son Ares, the god of war, to inspire and manipulate Hector to fight against Achilles. In addition, the queen asked the god Hephaestus to make armor and a shield for Achilles, which further increased his power in the war. Hector fell into the trap of the vengeful woman and engaged the hero in an epic battle. Although Hector fought valiantly, he was unfortunately defeated by Achilles and died on the battlefield. The goddess celebrated the victory of the Greeks, for her plan of manipulation had worked. And so, after many years of constant conflict, the Greeks finally took the victory, thus destroying the Trojan side, with which Hera was very satisfied. Over time, Zeus and Hera's relationship had many ups and downs in the future. The king's infidelities and his wife's jealousy often created tensions in their marriage, and the power struggles on Olympus also led to many conflicts between them. Thus, one of Zeus' first love affairs was with the beautiful maiden Leto. It is said that one day the god noticed the beautiful figure of the girl, and breaking with his engagement decided to have an affair with the woman. Hera, jealous, was furious at her husband's deception and sought revenge against Leto. The goddess, as soon as she learned that the mistress was on tape, forbade her to give birth to her children anywhere on earth, which left the young woman desperate and not knowing where to find shelter. The young woman traveled around the world in search of a safe place for childbirth, but was rejected everywhere for fear of Hera's wrath. Finally, the woman found a small floating islet in the sea, called Delos, which was willing to offer her shelter. The island was a desolate and rocky place, without life or inhabitants, but the maiden was grateful for any place that would receive her. While the girl was giving birth, Hera did not rest in her mission of vengeance against her unfaithful husband and her lover. However, her offspring had already been born, so Apollo and Artemis, newborn but already powerful gods, did not remain unmoved by the threat to their mother. The two siblings joined forces to protect Leto, fighting together against the dragon. Apollo wielded his bow and arrows with skill, while Artemis used her cunning and hunting knowledge to weaken the dragon. Finally, the siblings succeeded in slaying the python and saving their mother. After seeing the wrath of his wife, Zeus promised never to fail her, nor to be unfaithful to her again, and Hera, as the goddess of marriage, and convinced of her husband, promised never to abandon him. The months passed and the king of the gods, blinded by his lust, fell in love with Io, a beautiful princess of Argos, and decided to have an affair with her. To hide his infidelity to Hera, the king of the gods decided to transform Io into a white cow. In this way, Zeus hoped to be able to have an affair with the maiden without his wife suspecting anything. But despite the transformation, Hera was not fooled and discovered her husband's affair. However, she said nothing. The maiden of Olympus was furious and decided to take drastic measures to take revenge on Io and Zeus. The goddess asked her husband to give her the white cow she admired so much, alluding that it was too beautiful and that it was made especially for the gods. Zeus, with no other options, had to accept the wishes of his consort and said he agreed, although inside he was nervous. Hera sent Argus, a monster with 100 eyes, and her faithful lackey, to guard the cow and make sure that the god could not see his mistress again. With Argus' help, the goddess kept Io under constant surveillance, which left her isolated and desperate. The queen of the gods told Argus not to let the cow out of his sight and to take her far away from Olympus, never to see her again. And when the god heard his wife's plans, he felt great anguish for his beloved. Zeus, desperate to save his lover, decided to send his son Hermes, the messenger of the gods, to rescue the princess. Hermes was known for his cunning and ability to deceive, and the king of Olympus was confident that his son could find a way to free Io from Argos' surveillance. After a long journey, the divine herald came upon the location of the monster guarding the maiden, and to attract her attention he began to tell beautiful, fantastic stories. As he told his stories, Hermes began to play his flute. The music was soft and melodious, and little by little, Argus began to feel drowsy. His heavy eyes slowly closed, as his mind sank into a deep sleep. Hermes took the opportunity to approach the cow and release it from its captivity. With a swift and precise movement, Hermes cut off Argus' head. Argus' death freed the princess and allowed her to flee. However, Hera's wrath was not over. To continue her revenge, the queen of Olympus sent a gadfly to pursue Io. The gadfly stung the cow relentlessly, causing great pain and suffering to the maiden. The cow fled across the world, trying to escape the gadfly and the queen's wrath, but to no avail. Until, tired and desperate the martyrdom, she begged the divinities for her release, and Zeus, interceding for her lover, asked his spouse to let him release the cow. The goddess, after the incessant insistence of the god, accepted the proposal. Finally, Zeus put an end to the suffering of Io and turned her back into a human, but she never returned to Olympus. After Argus' death, Hera was filled with sadness and anger. She had a great affection for him and felt deeply affected by his death. So, in his honor, the Lady of Olympus decided to create a symbol to remember his loyalty and dedication. It was then that she had an idea: to take the eyes of Argus' inert body and place them in the peacock's feathers. The years passed, and as it was already customary, the king of Olympus descended to earth to satiate his low instincts with beautiful women, in search of adventures. One day Hera, after so much searching for her husband, discovered him from Olympus with a mortal. The goddess was furious about the new infidelity, and stealthily began to plan her revenge against the new lover of his consort, the young mortal Semele. Hera disguised herself as an old woman and approached the young woman. The goddess manipulated the girl into asking Zeus to show her in her true divine form, telling him that if he wanted to be with her, he would show her whatever she desired. Not knowing the old woman's true identity, Semele heeded him, and in one of her encounters with the god asked him to reveal her true divine form. Zeus, unsuspecting of Hera's revenge, acceded to her request and revealed himself in his divine form, which was so powerful and brilliant that the girl could not bear it, and died. Zeus was devastated by the death of his lover, for the woman was expecting his child, so in desperation he decided to rescue his unborn child. Zeus removed the child from her womb and placed it on his thigh, where its development was completed, and finally Dionysus was born. Hera, furious at the event, looked forward to taking revenge on her husband. However, the god convinced her of his love, and they continued together despite everything. But the father of the gods never stopped deceiving the Lady of Olympus, and one of the greatest love affairs of Zeus was the one he had with Alcmene, the mother of Heracles. Alcmene was the wife of Amphitrite, an outstanding general and prince. Because of her great beauty and beautiful figure, the king fell in love with her and decided to seduce her. To achieve his goal, Zeus disguised himself as Amphitrite took his form, and presented himself to Alcmene as her husband. The woman did not notice the difference, and gave herself to the god, not knowing that she was not sleeping with her husband. The queen discovered it immediately and decided to seek revenge against Alcmene and punish her, since after the encounter, she had become pregnant by her husband. The goddess, full of anger, made the childbirth of her husband's mistress extremely difficult and long, prolonging her suffering. The angry woman sent her daughter, the goddess of childbirth, to her mistress' abode to prolong the birth of Heracles, or even prevent his birth. But Alcmene's maid intervened and deceived the goddess by telling her that the child had already been born, which made Eilithyia desist from the spell. Despite Hera's efforts, Alcmene gave birth to Heracles, son of Zeus, and his twin brother Iphicles, son of Amphitrite. Zeus decided to honor his son, granting him superhuman strength and abilities, which made him a legendary hero. The Lady of Olympus continued to seek revenge against Heracles throughout his life, sending challenges and obstacles in his way. The goddess drove him temporarily mad and killed his wife and children, and as penance for his terrible crimes, Heracles was subjected to 12 years of additional labor, which included the capture of Cerberus, the three-headed dog that guarded the entrance to the underworld. Despite his many challenges, Heracles finally managed to win the favor of the goddess by aiding her in a battle against the giants. The queen of the gods granted him immortality and became his protector. The king of Olympus, although his marriage to Hera was hanging by a thread, his infidelities were more and more constant. Hera was jealous of Zeus' love for other women and constantly tried to challenge him. At one point the goddess could not stand her anger and joined Poseidon and Athena to plan a coup against Zeus and take control of Olympus. The other divinities accepted the queen's proposal because, for a long time, the king was ruling with so much evil and severity to gods and mortals. So they believed that he should no longer be the ruler. They hated the gods so much that they wanted to kill him forever. They were planning his downfall, and one night while the god was resting, they put into practice their sinister plan. Hera, Poseidon, and Athena trapped him in his bed, tied him with powerful chains so that he could not release the lightning bolts he possessed. And thus, as soon as the king of the gods woke up and found himself bound, he cried desperately for his freedom. However, the divinities, far from helping him, mocked him, and being there, they voted to see who would be the new ruler of Olympus. Thetis, seeing the rebellion of the gods, ran to seek help, where the giant Briareos, and how faithful the lackey of Zeus, faced the gods and freed him from the powerful chains that immobilized him. The Olympian regained his strength and conspired against his enemies, punishing them with the harshest of penalties for betraying him. While, for the leader of the rebellion, his wife, the goddess Hera, a heartbreaking punishment awaited her. As a sentence, he bound her by her hands to the firmament with heavy divine chains, and she was suspended in the void, also bound by her ankles with golden chains with large anvils at the end, leaving her in a humiliating position for many days. The goddess suffered much pain and shame before the other gods for her rebellion against the king of Olympus, but she did not repent of her actions. Nevertheless, out of his love for the goddess, Zeus decided to forgive Hera, provided she promised never to reveal herself again. Thus, when she accepted it, the god lifted her punishment, allowing her to return to Olympus and resume her role as one of the main deities. Despite her rebellion, Hera remained one of the most respected and powerful goddesses in Greek mythology.